camera angle vibe going on. Anyway, so the first lesson we did, we talked about how to get the right stand height. So now we're just gonna put together the entire thing. Crazy, right? So here's what you do with the legs is you're gonna hold the stand up like that, and then you're gonna find the lower wing nut. This is what moves the joint that the legs are connected to. And whenever you move any wing nuts, you just want to loosen it enough so that you can freely move the legs. You might have to jiggle all three of the feet out from the center. Yeah, like that. Woo! Yeah, they do that sometimes. So, every stand is different, but my rule of thumb is the wider the legs are from the center of the stand, the better. Because when you have that wider base, then there's less of a chance of it wiggling and going to fall over, like some of the stands that I see when we do wind ensemble recordings, and it makes me nervous. Cool. So once you think you got that wide enough, for these stands, I'd go about like 1.5 feet from the center. Then for tightening the wing nut, you just have to tighten it just enough so that it like stops moving. Because if you don't tighten them and then you start playing on them, then they vibrate and it sounds like you have snares on, and that's bad. So now that we got that, we're just going to do the same thing that we did in the first lesson, which was find that middle wing nut that is right under the top telescope or pole of the stand, and then try to guesstimate a good height for it. This is where move the camera. All right. Cool. So once you think you got a good height, you're going to pick up your pad and flip it over. See how there's a hole in the center?
Yeah.
So that's where the screws for the pad stand are going to line up to. So what I do is I feel for the hole with one of my fingers, and then I try to line it up with that screw, get it so it's resting on top, and then for these, you turn it clockwise to tighten. Lefty loosey, righty tighty.
All right.
Word. And now we're going to lift up our arms and see how our height is. Do you think you're low or high, or just right? I think I'm just a tad bit low. What's nice for little kids, am I in the camera? Okay, I am. What's nice for little kids is if they have a stand that they bring in to like every lesson, you can like mark with like a piece of tape where the exact height for them is.
Okay.
It'll probably change if they're going to go through puberty, but that's a nice little thing, just like get the process faster for them. So let's raise our arms again. See if we feel any tension. Imagine you're holding your imaginary sticks. Do you feel like you would have to reach to hit the center of the pad?
No.
All right. Nice. So let's test that theory and get sticks in our hands and review our fulcrum. So in palm of the hand like that, for these sticks, the thumb pad and that index finger knuckle gonna line up and meet for that pivot point right where that American flag logo is. We got the butt of the stick sticking out from our hand mush. Yeah, cool. Now let's test out our height. How's that feel?
Comfortable.
Nice, cool. So let's get our fulcrum in our other hands. We're doing 2 this time. Word. And then just like check your whole body and see if where you are in relation to the pad causes any tension. Because if you're too close, then you're gonna like chicken wing like that. You feel good?
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. So as just a review of how we're holding our sticks, how our body is in relation to the drum, you want to like have that mental checklist in your head every single time you play. So anytime that we physically move our arms or our hands to make a note on a drum, it's called a stroke, just like that. And there's 3 parts of any sort of stroke. 1, 2, 3. 1 sort of happens before 2, like in time, and then 2 and 3 are sort of close to each other. So first there's the hello. So first there's the prep, and for the sake of us doing this right now, you're just gonna bend at your elbow, and your wrist might bend upwards a little bit, like so. So that's the prep. And then just watch me for this next one. 2 is the attack, and 3 right after is the recovery. They're sort of like really close to each other in time. So the attack, you obviously hit the drum with the beat of the stick, and then the recovery is just whatever the stick is doing right after the hit. So for this, after the hit, my bead stops about an inch from the top of the pad. So for now, it just goes back to that playing position that we started at. So in one fluid motion, right? Yeah, even more slow motion. Focus on getting just that elbow bend and then plopping it down. Yeah, I say that because what a lot of people tend to do is instead of just bending from their elbow, they'll also like bend their shoulder and just like get really wonky. We're too lazy for that. We want to do the least amount of work possible to get good sounds out of it. Cool. Try with your left hand.
Okay.
Yeah, nice. I like the rebound you sort of have after the thing. It's almost like bouncing a ball. So here's what we are going to do. If my metronome app loads. You know, a little bit. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to practice that in time.
Okay.
So, actually, before we do that, sorry, let me ask a question first. So, you're hypothetically going to play on beat 1 whenever you're playing saxophone or whatever. Whenever you breathe to play that note that's going to sound on beat 1, when do you breathe?
The beat before.
What happens if you breathe right when you're supposed to play?
It will be late.
Yeah. So to have our notes actually in time, we have to prep sometime before the beat. For younger players, it's very nice to do it in time. Like there's certain tempos that just feel really nice to do a prep in time. Like let's say the quarter note before. So that's what we're gonna do.
Okay.
So we're gonna play. Let me shut that up first. We're gonna play every 4 beats. We're gonna play on beat 1, prep on 4, beat 1, over and over again. We're gonna play and count out loud. And we're going to start right hand, left hand, and then doing both hands eventually. I'll call those out as we go. If I ever stop counting and playing with you, just keep on going. I'll give you a very obvious signal of when to stop. Cool. Every 4 beats, focusing on getting that prep in time the beat before, and having a nice recovery about an inch from the head. Right hand. On, 2, ready, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, left hand, ready, go. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, both hands ready, go. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, and stop. Yeah, I like how you're looking at what you're doing. You seem very focused and into it, which is great.
I was afraid I would miss.
Like I did just now because I did like a red shot instead. Ooh, that's actually a nice tell to see. That's another way to tell if it's too high, because if it's too high, then it's easier to hit the rim more.
Mhm.
But yeah, your preps are nice and in time. You look pretty relaxed while you're doing it. It's great. So let's try that same thing, but we're gonna play every 2 beats instead.
Okay.
And this time, whenever you count, I want to try to see how much inflection you can get with your voice.
Okay.
With like getting a good high pitch on the preps, like 4, 2, 3. Don't be afraid to get silly with it.
Okay.
I feel like with younger kids, having that inflection also helps get the idea of being musical while also playing drums, because a lot of young kids just think it's and not actually music. So yeah, we're gonna do every 2 beats this time, counting with inflection, focusing again on that nice prep and getting a good recovery. 1, 2, ready, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, left hand, ready, go. 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, both hands, ready, go. 2, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, and stop. Yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot more varied inflection that time. That sounded good. Cool. So let's try it with quarter notes this time. And while we do it with quarter notes, I want you to see I want you to focus on how the prep feels compared to the last 2 exercises we did. Also, since we're already looking down at ourselves playing, also while we're doing this, your tacit hand, the one that's like not actively playing, try to see if you can keep it right at that same playing position. It probably seems scary. Don't be afraid of accidentally hitting your sticks together like that. It still happens to college age percussionists, so don't be afraid. So, quarter notes this time, focusing on keeping our tacit hands right in place.
Like one at a time or all?
We're gonna do right hands in a row, left hands in a row, and then
Okay. Cool.
1, 2, ready, and 1. Left hand, ready, go. Both hands, ready, go. 4, and stop. Nice. You see, the first rep you did, I saw your tacit hand go from like there to down there. Yeah, that's good though. It takes getting used to. But yeah, that's good. It looks very nice that you're only moving from your elbows. Like you look super relaxed. It's super nice. So,
Dr. Paul would remember
oh yeah, instrumental conducting.
I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's a lot of like the same concepts of just like doing the least amount of work you have to get whatever movements you need.
Right.
Yeah. So, how did those preps feel in relation to the other ones from the last 2?
Mine felt a little frantic at first because like, oh my goodness, my rebound is coming all the way up here now.
Yeah.
But it got more comfortable as I went.
Yeah. How would you consider it? How do you think it's different time-wise? I like how you use the words frantic at first and then because of the rebound. So, time-wise, how do you think the preps are different from the last 2?
Maybe a little swifter.
A little swifter, yeah.
I could take my time with the half notes, but with the quarters, it's got to come up right away.
Yeah, exactly. So, the first two exercises we did, when it was just whole notes and half notes, those are what we call control strokes or single strokes. And the difference between the two is the recovery. So the recovery for the single strokes or the control strokes is just going back right to that playing position. But with rebound strokes, it's just a very continuous motion where the recovery turns into the prep for the next note. It's a very fluid motion. The way that I think about it is that, let's say you have a basketball and you're dropping it from this very anatomically correct figure, and control strokes is just you dropping it and then somehow like crouching down and catching the ball immediately like right above the ground. And then for rebound strokes, it's just like dribbling a ball. It's like a very continuous movement of the basketball.
Yeah.
I wish I brought a basketball. That would have been fun to do. All right. So to get the difference between those two very down, we're going to do the little exercise I wrote on the board that I don't think Dr. Paul can really see because of the skylights, but that's fine. So basically, it's just two measures of the half note versions and then two measures of the quarter note versions. So the main focus of this exercise is just getting that like sort of motor switch between having just a stopped recovery and a fluid one.
Okay.
All right. Oh, yeah. Cool. So, same thing like last time. We're going to do right hand, left hand, both hands. I'll call them out.
Okay.
And yeah, once you have a feel for what the actual notes are, you can go back to looking at your pad and trying to like work on getting more consistency with your tacit hand, just chilling out, staying in that playing position. Cool. 1, 2, ready, go. 2, 4, 2, 4, 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 4, 2, 4, 1. 6, 7, 8, 2, 4, 2, 4, 1. Left hand, ready, go. 2, 4, 2, 4, 1. And 2, 4, 2, 4, 1. 6, 7, and 2, 4, 2, 4, 1. Both hands ready, go. 2, 4, 2, 4, 1. 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 1. And nice. And see you're getting more consistency with your tacit hands. Good job with that. One thing to keep in mind is the hand that's playing, if we're doing just the control strokes, like in the first two measures, you want to try to match that recovery to the tacit hand as much as possible. I'm getting picky with it because you're picking it up pretty fast. So yeah, just so it looks all nice and pretty. Cool. So let's call that dynamic we just played forte.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to try and experiment for a hot second to see how you can make a piano noise on the drum. Nice. So, what are you doing physically that makes it piano as opposed to forte?
A little less gravity.
Yeah. The term that I like to use for that is using a little less force, or just tapping it as opposed to thinking of the hit going through the head into the bottom of the drum. Just a little tap. So for quiet dynamics, you can use less force with the beat of the stick, and you can have different stick heights or like different heights of preps so that it's less momentum going down. So what I usually do for quiet dynamics is for my prep, I'll just bend my wrist up a little bit. Yeah, like that. And then just, yeah, nice. For like even really quiet dynamics, sometimes people will just use their fingers and like trigger the stick from that pivot point into the palm of your hand. That's more of an advanced thing, but in general, you'll want to do just a shorter prep, so just with wrist and then using less force. So let's try that same exercise again. And same thing, right hand, left hand, both hands, trying to focus on how we can use a smaller height prep and less force to get quiet dynamic, what we'll call piano. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, left hand, ready, go. 2, 4, 2, 4, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4. Both hands, ready, go. 2, 4, 2, 4, and stop it early. That's happy. Yeah. So, are you starting to get a feel for how it affects dynamics and stuff? Nice. So, like, I could see over time you getting more comfortable with just using your wrist for the preps. So, good on that. And that's all I got.
Cool.
Bye, Dr. Paul.